then they sent the tapes to Tupac, because I think this was like on a Wednesday. We went in there and did it, and then by the weekend he had gotten the cassette of it, asked me to send him some beats on a cassette so they could overnight to him. So I put some beats on there and some from a couple of my friends who were producers, to to try to get them on. And he chose one, but I didn't know which one it had been. But by that next Wednesday, I was in New York to record it. They flew me there.
Right.
And from that day, Tupac told me that From the Cradle to the Grave is going to be on the radio. They were going to make it the first single.
Wow.
And I was like, whoa. So within a week's time, that was on there. And I was there to record, which I found out to be Outlaw. I didn't know, because I didn't expect that track to be, I didn't send that track to him. It was on the cassette. It was on the end of it.
Right.
It was an R&B song that I had written for, I had a track that I had written for someone who actually returned it because he said he couldn't do anything with it. And so we spent like an hour looking, just going through my files, and Tupac, no, not that one, not that one. And then he actually played the cassette, and I said, oh. I said, well, actually, man, that's an R&B track, and he said, well, it's a rap now, nigga. I was like, okay. So I popped that in there and started laying it down. By the time I finished it, they all had written something to it. It was Tupac, and it was the Outlaws, but they were at the time called Young Niggas. And they were real young. Like, I think the oldest one was Edie, and he was 17. And the rest of the guys were younger than that. And so he was like, respect Moe Z. He knows what he's doing. Come in here and do your thing. And he was real rough on him and everything. And we ended up, we recorded the song, and came back to California, and they told me that he was gonna use one of the remixes that I did on the album, and it turned out to be Lord Knows. And also someone else had a version of it. They kind of blended, I think it was Tony Pizarro, they kind of blended the remixes of what we did to make that version of it. And what else? Oh, then we had a long break. It was like 6 months there was nothing going on. I guess he was going through his thing, and then he came to California in September, and it was on.
I bet it was.
Boy, I had never recorded. This is a person who records every day, mostly all day, since I was 10 years old, since I figured out how to record tape to tape.
Right.
Before multi-track, before I knew about multi-tracking. And he wore me out. I didn't do those kind of hours where it was like you come in the morning and then you stay overnight to the next morning. I was like, woo. Yeah. But I got used to it. We were cranking them out then.
Absolutely. That's classic right there. Man. All right, so John Cougar Mellencamp, man, was trying to reach Dr. Dre.
Yes.
How the hell did you weasel into that one there? How did that one go down?
Because his manager, or I think it was his manager, who actually who's making the calls, called my publisher. And so my publisher, of course, said, no, you don't need Dr. Dre. You need Moe Z. And he was like, who is Moe Z? He said, man, Moe Z is hot. He just come off this Tupac, Me Against the World. You got the Tales from the Hood. He's really selling it and everything. Right. And so he's like, okay, let me try him out. And so my publisher calls me and said, hey, how would you like to produce Johnny Cougar? And I'm like, well, yeah, that'd be great, because it's like now I'm not doing hip hop, I'm going into rock. Something completely different, which I know I can do. Others didn't know. But then here again, I'm having to prove myself in a different genre. Now the fourth genre that I have to prove myself in, and start with a new fresh thing. But I flew all of my equipment and everything out to Indiana to John's studio, and he was talked to us for a while. He said, listen, I got Raphael Sadiq out here to do some stuff, and I wanted him to do some drum loops, but he ended up really just playing bass on a couple songs. I got Junior Vasquez, who was Madonna's producer, to do some stuff, and you know, I guess he had gotten busy. I just want to see what you could do. This is the last song on the album. We're just gonna now this reminds me of From the Cradle to the Grave, because it was the last song on the album they were doing.
Right.
And so he goes, let's just see what you can do. Now, why did you bring all of this stuff? And I said, well, I was told that I was producing you. And he got a really good hearty laugh out of that, and said, no, I produced myself, but I just wanted you to do some drum loops.
Okay.
So let me see what you could do. So, you know, he started playing the song and on the acoustic guitar, and everybody's around, you know, mapping the tempo and everything, and getting the keys and figuring out what we're gonna do. So I got my headphones on, so they can't hear what I'm doing, but I can hear everything they're doing. So I'm like throwing in these samples, DOC, and I'm like, oh yeah, all this kind of stuff, scratches. I had the turntable. I went hard on it.
Yeah.
And so we laid down a few tracks, and then he said, what else you got? And I started laying down all these other parts and organ, and while that was playing back, I was singing background, like kind of mumbling background parts to what he was doing. And he was like, ooh, put that in there. And 10 minutes later, I'm stacking vocals. I got like all these vocals in there, and just going hard. And he said, Mo, that's really good. I like what you did. What do you think about touring with the band? And I said, well, that's okay. I'm with that. He said, no, I'm serious. We go on the road, you know, do shows and stuff. And we'll be taking it easy because, you know, I'm getting older and I don't want to do as many shows as I used to do.
Right.
It's like, okay. So, you know, I come back, and about 6 months later, he said, okay, we're going to start rehearsals in August and start the tour in September. So I went out there and got a little apartment and stayed there and practiced and really got to know them and get used to the vibe, because it was, they weren't used to me either. You know, I wasn't this rock guy who come in there with the shirt rolled up and, hey fellas and guys, and,
right,
you know,
right.
I was coming in there on some East Side Long Beach, you know, what's cracking lacking, what's up, yo, you know, and all that, sagging and with the blue rag, and I mean everything just nuts. And it was just a culture shock for each other, and we had to get used to each other, but it was pretty quick because I understood the music. And you know, that's what it is. Jumping genres, as long as you understand the music and what's going on and put your heart into it, that's, you know, people are gonna feel it.
Right, absolutely. So, I mean, we all know Pac was a legend, man, and he left a legacy that is unparalleled.
Yeah.
How did you feel, you know, the first time when you heard that Pac had gotten shot?
Oh, wow. Yeah, that was really rough. I was at the house, and I was actually writing something for Radio's album, and he had left and said he was going to come back and we are going to do some more work, but in the meantime I was working on Radio.